96.3 WHUR and HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. Your questions or comments toll free at 855-288-4876. Now, Insight.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM, Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher.
I'm late for a very important date. No time to say hello, goodbye. I'm late.
Yep, a lot of us are just like that rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, last minute and often late. We know what we have to do and when, but some of us are in no rush to get there. We are the procrastinators. On this tax deadline night, it's the perfect time to talk about it. My guests are Dr. Nicole Cutts, psychologist and success and executive coach, and William Rolak, president and CEO of the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources. The lines are open. Give us a call right now at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810 outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. Are you a procrastinator? Or are you completely on time and just get it done? That's what I want to hear from the listeners tonight. Let me start with Dr. Cutts. Dr. Cutts, tax time. A lot of people are at their computers or even doing their taxes by hand tonight. This is the procrastinator's holiday. I mean, it really is. So is today different from any other kind of duty for which people might procrastinate? Is it because it's money? What do you think?
I think it's for different reasons that people procrastinate. Taxes are certainly something that virtually no one wants to do. And we often procrastinate tasks that are distasteful to us, and we don't want to do them. Yes, sometimes it's because of money. Sometimes it's because of the tedium. You know, it's the length of time that it takes. I know it takes me several days to do my taxes, so I don't always want to take those several days to do it. But usually we procrastinate on things that we find that are not enjoyable.
But outside the whole tax piece, outside of this late to do everything kind of day, what about people who procrastinate in getting chores done, perhaps fixing the hole in the wall, going grocery shopping, those kinds of things? Why do some people seem to have such a delay in getting these things done and others just take care of it right away?
Well, I think it has to do with the immediate gratification that you get from putting off things. You get to feel good about relaxing at that moment, putting it off. So there's that immediate gratification. But you find when you do things right away, then you get the gratification of having completed it, and you can really relax. Sometimes it's a self-defeating and self-destructive behavior that people engage in.
Yeah, I would imagine so. And Mr. Rolak, we were just talking about the home place, but what about the the workplace? That can really be problematic, can't it?
Yes, it can. And I totally agree with Dr. Cutts, because there's this, piece around fun and not fun, or what's distasteful. And in the workplace, I would say it starts with that first person. It starts with self and that self-motivation, getting up and wanting to go and wanting to get things done and wanting to check things off the list. But there are days where, you go in and it's like, oh, my gosh, it takes everything, every bit of your strength and energy. So, really being able to name that personal self-motivation, that personal get up and go is really what's going to keep you on the right side of not procrastinating and not waiting to do it tomorrow, what can be done today.
But see, Mr. Rolak, I'm in the news business. You can't really be a procrastinator in this business, because you can't stop time. And if you're not on time, certainly not here at WHUR, but certainly in the other places I work, you get your head chopped off if you're if you're late. But there are certain jobs where it really doesn't matter. Is there can you think of any position that would be perfect for people who have a hard time making deadlines, or is it just bad all the way around?
I would say it's bad all the way around, because I can't think of a position that doesn't require some immediate activity at some point in time. Even if you are the porter or the janitor. Hey, there's always a cleanup on aisle 12. And they got to move when that happens. We don't want a client or a customer to slip and fall, but you may have duties that you can space out and work during the course of the day. Those type of activities, I think, are good for those who may be considered procrastinators, and they can kind of shift things around and put the heavy lifting in their best time of day. If they're a morning person, they can do it in the morning. If they're that midday person or afternoon, they can do the heavy lifting at their best time of day. But can't think of a job that would give you the ability not to have to respond quickly.
202-319-7810, 202-319-7810, outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. We're talking about procrastinating. Are you a procrastinator? If not, how do you feel about those that are procrastinators? James calling from West Virginia. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I was just listening to your procrastination show, and it just caught my attention. My question to the gentleman is, what or is there a connection between the physical procrastinator and the emotional procrastinator? Whereas it applies to, should I read tonight? Or I guess what I'm trying to say, that for me, it's structure. Is getting me through, because I am a huge procrastinator. Well, I used to be. Now I'm trying to intentionally not procrastinate. And so that's part of my structure.
Well, let me see if that sounds like maybe Dr. Cutts may want to try to address that. Emotional, physical, what do you think?
Well, I think it all has an emotional bent to it. It just depends on what you find enjoyable and what's not enjoyable. And I think that if we ask James, he's probably would say that now that he's a recovering procrastinator, he enjoys the feeling he gets now from having accomplished the work. And what people need to do. Yeah.
Can I interrupt? I want to give you a praise report, because just as I was about to try and call your show, I was trying to intentionally not forget the phone number, because you say them so quickly. And I had my phone, and I dialed the second number, and I wasn't prepared for procrastination, but she picked up the phone, and here I am.
Well, there you go.
I did not procrastinate. Normally, I would try and get multitasking, kind of set this society back.
Yeah.
So.
Well, James, thank you so
I'm
much.
Trying to do one happy at a time.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the tip as well. I promise I will say those phone numbers much more slowly so that everyone has an opportunity to hear them. 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810, outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876. 855-288-4876. We're taking a break. We're talking about procrastination. Why are you a procrastinator, or how do you feel about those that are procrastinators? We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM, Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We're talking about procrastinating. Why do they waste time and what does that do to those who do not procrastinate? My guests are Dr. Nicole Cutts. She's a psychologist and success and executive coach. Also, William Rolak. He is president and CEO of the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources. The lines are open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810, outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. Also, for our listeners, do you have a procrastinator in your life? If it's not you, and how does that make you feel? Let me go to Ralph calling from Silver Spring. Hey, Ralph, you are a procrastinator. What's going on with you?
Yes, and it's Robert.
It's okay. Sorry about that, Robert. Please go right ahead.
And the question I've always asked when I found I was procrastinator at a young age, and I just found that procrastination to me just means you get it done at the last minute. but I always do an excellent job, and I do it better than those who get it done. Even when I was in school writing papers or work I can get it done better than those who do it a week ahead of time.
But does that cause a problem, though?
What's the problem with procrastination?
I mean, does it cause a problem for you?
You wait till the last moment to get something done. Doesn't mean you don't do an outstanding job or it affects your life. It's just you wait. And I found that over time.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, Ralph, did it cause a problem, for you? But I want to make sure that I get a couple of more folks in. Thank you so much for your phone call. Let's talk to Erica, calling from Bowie. You're a procrastinator too. Why are all these people procrastinators? I don't get it. What's going on with you, Erica?
Yeah, I'm kind of a procrastinator. I don't know if it's just that or if it's a time management thing. So I just wanted to find out, is there a difference between procrastination and time management, or is it like the same thing? But I just know, like, even if it's something I really want to do or if it's something I'm really looking forward to, for whatever reason, it just, I don't know, sometimes I'm running late for something, and this has been, like, throughout life, and I know I've missed out on major things that I didn't want to miss out on.
Well, let me see if Mr. Rolak can address that. Mr. Rolak, time management versus procrastination, what do you think?
Sure. I'll tie the two in also for Robert earlier, Erica, as well, because one of the things that I find is that those who have a well-defined structure around time management and getting things done, they process the activity or they process their objectives of the day prior to the day. So it's like, I know I have these 5 things to get done. You've already kind of thought through them before the activity presents itself. Those who may be considered in a procrastination state are, like Robert mentioned, now the opportunity or the activity is upon me, and now I'm giving it all I got to get it done. I would say, not the latter, but actually processing through those activities before they come, even if you are doing them, not before the opportunity exists. You may be able to, process through it a lot better. And the example that I want to give here quickly is that, it's a domino effect. If you have and Harold, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, if you got a report that you need to publish by a particular time during the day, and you submit that at 10:59 and it's due at 11, and then you read back through it and you have errors, then those errors are published.
And that's a problem. That's a major problem. I need to take a break, but when we come back, more of your phone calls. Gina, Rashad, and of course, Erica, thank you so much for calling. 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876. 855-288-4876. Procrastinators, folks that are late, last minute, we'll see. We'll talk about it some more. Jeff Brown is next with the original Quiet Storm on 96.3 WHUR. The Daily Drum continues on Sirius XM Channel 141 in just a few seconds.
The Howard University Radio Network is WHUR 96.3 FM, WHUR World 96.3 HD2, student-run WHBC HD3, GlassHouseRadio.com, SiriusXM Channel 142, HBCU, and SiriusXM Channel 141, HUR Voices, Washington.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We are talking about procrastinators. Why do they waste time? What does that do to those who do not procrastinate but must still deal with the procrastinators? My guests are Dr. Nicole Cutts, psychologist and success and executive coach, and William Rolak, president and CEO of the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources. Lines are open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876. 855-288-4876. Here's a question for you. There are people who procrastinate, but they, and particularly in the workplace, they may say that they work better under pressure. True or false? What do you think, Dr. Cutts?
I think it's true. There are some people who work better under pressure, but you still have to, as Mr. Rolak mentioned, you still have to have a time management strategy. So if you're choosing to delay on something because you don't mind working at that last minute to get it done, that's okay, as long as you're actually meeting those deadlines. Because you need to factor in things that you might not expect, like technology. If you've waited to the last minute to do something and your electricity goes out and you've lost your Wi-Fi, well, then you're in trouble. So if it works for you and that pressure helps you and you actually do a good job and produce a good work product, and as long as you're managing the rest of your time, I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world.
But what about relationships? Because we have seen time and time again, whether it's first date or 30 or 40 years married, that the guy, he'll pick her up, and he said, I'll pick you up at 7. The show starts at 8. And at 7:30, she's still running around upstairs half dressed. And
what? She's running around. She's running around. Okay.
She's running. I said it.
It's not me.
I said it. And then, like I said, 30 years married, honey. The show starts at 8. I told you about it earlier this week, and we're still late because she is still putting on how does it affect relationships, Dr. Cutts? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, the she aside, how it can affect relationships is that it creates contention and stress between the couple, because when one person's an on-time person and the other person's a slow person, it can definitely be a source of fights. So what I advise couples to do is to make their expectations known and clear and ask for what it is they would like that would make it a less stressful environment for them.
But hold on, Doctor, because I told you this morning that the movie started at 8 o'clock, right? You said you wanted to go, and I came to get you at 7. It only takes us 20 minutes to get there.
Okay, so
why is that happening?
So when that happens, do you tell the person that keeps you waiting how it leads to you feeling and what you would like to have happen instead?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to do that. Now, you can also make a choice. If that person is consistently late and the stress is just too much for you to bear, you don't have to be in that relationship. But if you feel you're in a worthwhile relationship and the two people have different concepts of time and time management, then you need to make your expectations clear, and each person needs to move a little bit toward the other person.
Or tell them that the 8 o'clock movie starts at 7.
Or lie to your partner.
There you go. 2 o'clock. 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810 outside of the D.C. calling area. 855-288-4876. 855-288-4876. Let's talk to Gina in Baltimore. Golly, I bet you she's late to the movies. Gina, what's going on with you?
Yes, I am all the above. Everything that you guys have mentioned, I have many stories, and friends and relatives can definitely agree.
Why is that, Gina?
Well, it goes back, as far as I could remember as a child. I will say this. I had an eye-opener from a job performance regarding time management, organization, the whole 9 yards. And I had to figure out what can I do to change.
Okay.
And I knew it wouldn't be something easy, so I started reading. And I fell upon a book regarding no excuses.
Okay.
But then it related.
Well, let me ask you, Regina. I'm sorry, Gina. I've got a lot of folks on the line. So what did you find out?
ADD. And then I want the doctor to talk about that.
I see. Interesting. How are you doing now? Better?
Yes.
Okay.
You deal with one day at a time, one situation, and take one bite.
All right.
One
well,
thank you. Bite.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Rashad, calling from College Park. You're also a procrastinator. What's going on with you? Why are you a procrastinator?
Oh, man. Well, I guess I'm not sure why I'm a procrastinator. I guess I'm just wired that way. At least I'm getting ready to turn 30, so I feel like I've gone through a lot of my young adult life in the workplace, and I've definitely run into these issues changed workplace a few times because this led to just bad feelings at work.
Okay.
And so I guess what I kind of feel like maybe I'm starting to learn who I am and maybe become aware of these things. And just recently took this Myers-Briggs type indicator, which says that I'm a perceiving type of person, which is supposed to be a calm and relaxing, laid-back person that doesn't meet deadlines. And so I guess now I'm trying to come to terms and find out where it could be useful.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said something about the relationships, I guess I was thinking maybe I should find someone who can help me be more organized. Is that possible? You know,
or somebody like you. Real quick, Dr. Cutts. He says maybe he should find someone who can help him be less of a procrastinator. I say maybe, or somebody who is a procrastinator, and they can both be happy. Quick, what do you think?
Well, either one might work.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he's on the right track in terms of increasing his self-awareness to find out why he's procrastinated. And also, I would encourage you, Rashad, to write down ideally how you would like to be and how you would feel if you were not procrastinating.
Mm-hmm.
And what would that look like? And then start to act as if. Just act as if you're not a procrastinator.
You know, Mr. Rolak, on the job, sometimes I would imagine when you're put up against it, when your paycheck is at risk, that a procrastinator can all of a sudden really be a very timely person. Would you agree?
I would totally agree with that, especially when you look at the domino effect. And not everyone is a sole provider or a sole person who's delivering by themselves. There's someone else usually connected to an activity. So looking at that domino effect and feeling the pressure from others early, also helps.
Okay.
Would you mind if I make one more comment about that?
Rashad, I honestly, I've got to get to some other folks. We've got a lot of folks on the line, but certainly good luck to you in on the job and in that relationship. Obviously, a very important thing. I want to go to China, calling from Bowie. China, you are a procrastinator as well. What's going on with you? Why?
I think mostly because I'm just not focused or organized. I find myself, I'll go downstairs, I'll take a load of clothes, and then I'll see something on the floor, then I'll start sweeping. And then I'll go back upstairs and I'll see something in the bathroom, and I'll start cleaning. And this is all on my way going somewhere where I need to go at the time. I need to be there by a deadline or a certain time, and I find myself doing a whole bunch of other things in the middle of it.
You're distracted.
I'm very distracted, very easily distracted in my home.
Dr. Cutts, why? What's going on with the distractions? I think that would probably be applicable to a lot of folks.
Well, a lot of folks are distracted and easily distracted. Now, sometimes it reaches a diagnosable level where you might have ADHD, and you definitely, if it's a big problem for you, you should go and be assessed for that. But similar to what I suggested to Rashad, you can act as if. You can override those impulses to stop and sweep and vacuum and pick up things. And you can get into the habit. And also, what you could do is keep a chart of how many things you do successfully and on time and reward yourself for that. Because once you've grooved these bad habits, you need to have some positive reinforcement to get you going in a different direction. Right now, it's rewarding for her to stop and sweep. But I think you would feel better if you kept going to where you were going. And then reward yourself when you get through a day and you hit a certain number of tasks that you determine.
Okay. China, thank you so much. 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. We all have relationships. We have relationships at work. We have relationships in the home, some intimate, some familial. Let's talk about relationships at work. Mr. Rolak, I know that there have been times when you attended a meeting, and the meeting is supposed to start at 10 a.m., and there's always that person who rolls in there at 10:15. And
oh yeah,
and there's you hear the crickets when they walk in because the meeting has already started. What does that do for relationships and productivity on the job?
Yeah, I'll take it from the supervisory perspective, because when you have that constant person who's late to that meeting, it is extremely disruptive. And, and granted, they may have been working on something else important and they get to that meeting, but if it's happening consistently then there lies the conversation. And the piece around the conversation has to come from two perspectives. One, you really need to understand who your employees are. And two, you need to understand what their communication style is. Because if their communication style is indirect, then you need to come at them from an indirect standpoint. If it's direct, you need to come at them from a more direct and standpoint of communication around, being on time. You can still get the same means to the end. You can still get the same goals accomplished, but you have to determine what that individual's communication style is, whether it's indirect or direct, and be flexible. And I think we heard earlier, being aware of self is also important, because if your communication style is only direct, you're going to have to shift to an indirect style depending on that individual you're trying to motivate.
But what about, perhaps in corporate America, where you have a diverse population of people working there, and it's always the black guy, and there's that stereotype, what they call it, CP time, or politically correct, it's African American time, whatever, but talk to me about those kinds of stereotypes. I'm sure there are whispers from the mailroom to the boardroom when the person of color is late.
Oh, absolutely. And those stereotypes are real. They do exist. And as African Americans, and especially as African American males, we have to be very cognizant of our timing, especially our timing of arrival, our timing of delivery, because those stereotypes do exist. And irregardless of the individual being a timely person or a procrastinator, unfortunately, we seem to fall in those larger scale buckets. Mm-hmm. So in order to break those cycles of perception, it's best that we're not only on time, but a lot of people say being on time is actually ahead of time. So you need to arrive 5 minutes early or 15 minutes early or 10 minutes early. Then that's really being on time.
Dr. Cutts, about the relationships in the home, your interpersonal relationships outside of the workplace, I'm quite sure that can be problematic, whether it's a stereotypical situation or it really can be detrimental, particularly for family events.
Well, yeah, it conveys what the people who are waiting for you. You start to feel that as if they don't care when they're late. Not different from work. There's a team element going on there. If there's a partner or there's a family, it's a team. And when one person isn't there, they're not really being considerate of the other people's time. And a lot of that's what people are reacting to, is their resentment around that feeling that they're not being made a priority.
Okay. I need to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Lawrence in Herndon. And the lines are still open if you have a question, if you have a comment about procrastination, how it affects you, how it affects your relationships, your workspace. 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. Why do some people seem to always arrive late? They may have time management problems. Why is this a problem? And why is it not for others? They're always on time. How do they do that? Lines are still open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. Lawrence from Herndon, as promised. What's going on with you, Lawrence?
Hey, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So I have been a procrastinator most of my adult life, and I am late for all events, funerals, reunions, doctor's appointments, work.
Why? And, why is that? What's going on? Why is this happening?
I don't really know why I do it. It seems like I don't get motivated until the very last minute. Mm-hmm. That's when I start getting ready and, to head out the door. And despite, just knowing that, I'm late and it may be affecting someone else, it really doesn't bother me at the end. Only at the beginning does it bother me when I walk in a room and the sea glares and people looking like, okay, well, we knew you were going to show up late. Does it bother me at that moment? But then later it's dismissed, and I just find myself just doing it over and over again. It's like a cycle, and just need some insight as to why I feel this way. I have no idea.
Well, why is that? Because I mean, honestly, Lawrence, it sounds. I mean, you kind of said it. You don't really care. What, Dr. Cutts? What's going on there?
Well, is this a behavior that you want to change, Lawrence?
I do.
Okay,
and,
so what is it
that
you don't like about it? How does it work against you?
I guess just having people, lose faith in me, I guess, is what bothers me, because, everyone knows that, whatever event I'm going to, I'm going to be the last one there or next to the last person being there. So, it's not a good feeling, but it's just something that I just can't break it for whatever reason. I mean, I just don't get motivated to be that very last minute, whether it's a project.
Do you have to be
a good project?
Well, you might be connecting with having to feel motivated to do something. First of all, you don't have to feel motivated to do something. But the things that do motivate you, have you tried rewarding yourself, setting a schedule, and if you achieve the goals or you get places on time, then rewarding yourself? Because like an earlier caller, I think you've gotten into a bad pattern where you're taking your reward up front of the avoidance, and then sort of the bitter pill at the end, where you kind of, I have a little note on my desk, it says eat your veggies first. I do the things first that I don't find as enjoyable, and then I reward myself with the tasks that I enjoy.
Okay, well, it's certainly something to think about, Lawrence. Good luck to you, and thank you so much for your phone call. I personally like vegetables, but that notwithstanding, I just eat the whole plate. But here's an anecdote for that, and for both of you, Mr. Rolak and Dr. Cutts. My mother helped cure many of the family members from being late at least to Thanksgiving dinner, because she has always said dinner starts at 4. If you arrive at 6, you will not eat because the family is large. And there have been times when some family members have arrived at 6 or late, and there are scraps. Where's the macaroni and cheese? Well, you were late.
Wow.
And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I think that the reality is that it's very, very real. And so when you talk about time management, workplace, or home, I think that sometimes you have to reward yourself, like you said, but other times you may get a little punishment.
Right.
Your thoughts about that, Mr. Rolak?
Well, absolutely. I think when those opportunities happen, I think we heard from the callers tonight, really talking about, some events, activities at work. When you have that negative effect that's happening every time, there comes a challenge of reality. So I'll say one thing that has resonated with me very well, and I'm sure Dr. Cutts is aware of this too. Those individuals who call tonight say, "I am late all the time." It's what you're saying that's creating your reality. So if you say, "Hey, this is going to be great. I'm going to get there on time today," odds are it should be great and you'll get there on time. But if you're saying, "I'm late every time. I'm going to be late," then the universe is going to deliver to you every possible way that you can be late, because that philosophy is you're right every time. And I'm sure Dr. Cutts could add to that.
Go ahead, Dr. Cutts.
Well, my thoughts on that are that, you're reinforcing the exact reality that you don't want to reinforce. And I try to encourage people to talk about negative behavior in the past when they're seeking to change it. So rather than saying, "I'm late all the time, that's the old you. Let's talk about from this point going forward, and then ideally, how do you want to be, and what behaviors would we need to see that would show us that you're being that way? And then that's when you employ the acting as if.
What about the difference between men and women? Are men often procrastinators, or women? Does it matter?
I honestly haven't read the research on the gender differences around procrastination. I know in my relationship, where we're both female, one of us tends to be a little bit more on time than the other one. I won't say who's who.
You won't say who that is?
I won't say who's who. And I know in my parents' relationship, my father was chronically late and my mom was chronically huffing and puffing about it.
Well, my dad, last minute person. My mother, usually, on time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a difference between being late and being a procrastinator? Are they one and the same?
I think they can be close cousins, but they're not necessarily one and the same. You might not be late because you were procrastinating. You might be late because you chose not to do whatever you needed to do to get out of the door. That's not necessarily the same thing as procrastinating.
Yeah, I too. I see it as it's an element that can create the lateness. So yes, procrastination is something that's happening first that's creating the lateness, and procrastination absolutely can be a component of that.
And I wanted to say one quick thing about time management. We mentioned this, is that people need to be realistic about how long it takes them to do things. Before I work with somebody on their time management, I first make them observe themselves and take notes. How long does it take you, without trying to rush, to eat, to dress, to do all those things, so that you can realistically make your time plan based on actually how long it takes you to do things?
It's kind of an under-promise, over-deliver situation.
Much better for the other person on the other end, also.
Because Mr. Rolak, living in a major metropolitan area, and I said this to Dr. Cutts during the break, if you are driving 1 mile in the city, in Washington, D.C., downtown, on a Wednesday at noon, it could take you 20 minutes to drive that mile. But if you're out in the suburbs on a Saturday afternoon, driving from your house 1 mile to the gas station, it could take you 5 minutes. And so I think that people really have to understand, like you said, Dr. Cutts, how long it takes for you to do something, particularly if you have other people involved in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my question in the workplace. How do you address it, Mr. Rolak, outside of saying, if you're late again, you're fired? How do you help someone, not threaten them, obviously, but help them move through the process of procrastination, whether it has to do with being tardy or whether it has to do with getting certain things done in a project? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I think it lends itself to a richer and deeper discussion with the supervisor. You're fine. Some supervisors are going to pull out the hammer and say, be on time or you're fired. But I would want that manager, that supervisor, to have a richer and deeper discussion with that employee to show them that, number one, they care, and number two, they want the most productive employee possible by having a conversation around they're deep diving. What is it that's going on in the morning that's having you late? Because you may find that it may be something else. It may be something else before you, say do the right thing before you throw the switch. So it may be that they're diabetic. It may be that they're taking 2 buses and a train. It may be the fact that they have to drop their kid off. So working backwards, let's work backwards from that standpoint and try to help them find a better way. We'll use the Japanese proverb kaizen, continuous improvement. Let's look at a better way to do this so you can be here on time, because we need you here on time. So I would hope that they would have a richer discussion versus, moving to just say, hey, get here on time and you're fired.
Okay. And Dr. Cutts, from your perspective, whether it deals with how it affects relationships or just how you deal with yourself, I can imagine if you don't address these issues, the consequences can be difficult, if not painful.
Yeah, it's, being late chronically for some people is also connected to being disorganized. And you'll find that people are very uncomfortable when they're in a constant state of disorganization. Mm-hmm. And they often feel overwhelmed and they don't know how to get out of it. And, it can be very painful.
Yeah. So what do you suggest for fixing it? One or two quick steps to at least try to curtail some of the procrastination issues?
Well, I think they should do some research on time management, setting up a time plan, observe themselves. They should also journal and try to get some insight and self-awareness as to what it is that they're gaining from the procrastination and look at what they could be gaining from changing that behavior and change their habits to move in that positive direction.
Okay, well, and don't journal too long.
Well, don't delay in the journaling either, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
and make sure that you eat your vegetables.
Eat your veggies first.
Eat those vegetables first. Mr. Rolak, for people interested in finding out more about the National Association of African Americans in Human Resources, is there a website that they can find for you?
Yes, there is. Some great information for anyone interested in being a part of the organization, and that's www.naahr.com. .org, sorry. So yeah, www.NAAAHR.org.
Okay, and Dr. Cutts, for you?
They should go to Vision Quest Retreats or to cutsconsulting.com.
Well, all three of those web addresses will be on WHUR.com under the Daily Drum site, as well as a podcast of a portion of tonight's discussion. So I want to thank Dr. Nicole Cutts and William Rolak for spending some time with us. And I promise we will get out of this program on time. I have 45 seconds to do that. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it. That is the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141 for this Wednesday, April 15th. I'm Harold Fisher. If you can reach me at hfisher@WHUR.com, on Facebook at Harold T. Fisher, or on Twitter at hfisher WHUR. Now, stay tuned for The Connection with Lorna Newton, and 20 seconds left. Good night.
The Howard University Radio Network is WHUR 96.3 FM, WHUR World 96.3 HD2, student-run WHBC HD3, glasshouseradio.com.